Hey guys, it's Ross over at the Daily Jaws, and welcome to another very special video. This is a 45th anniversary audio commentary of Jaws 2. And joining me is, well, Mr. Jaws 2. This is Michael A. Smith, who has written an incredibly thick and informative book about the making of Jaws 2. And Michael and I are going to sit down and we're going to watch the movie, and he's going to take us through some of the key moments of the film, from sort of production stories all the way through to plot points, and also a little bit of the history about the making of the film. Michael, thanks very much for joining us again.
Hello, hello, my pleasure.
So before we dive into the audio commentary, tell us a little bit about your relationship with this movie and how you came to write this incredible book.
On June 16th, 1978, actually a couple days before, my friends and I were in a quandary because Jaws 2 and Grease also opened on that day. And we couldn't decide. Well, I knew what I wanted to see, but couldn't decide what we wanted to see. So we ended up going to see Jaws 2. We saw all 5 shows that day. Back in the day of good exhibition and a 1,000-seat theater with the big curtains that parted, and we just never got up. We got there early. First show was 11:30. We wanted to be there. We wanted to buy the first tickets in line. We got there at 10:15, and there was some kid there, some Jaws nerd, that was already waiting, but he let us buy his tickets. So we technically bought the first tickets in the city of Tampa, Florida, to see Jaws 2.
Nice.
Ever since then, it's been one of my favorite films. Several years ago, on an off comment, my friend Lou Pisano and I were given an idea to write a Jaws 2 book. It was scoffed at by some, but I think we turned out a beauty. As you can see, it's very thick. If you take it with you to read on a boat and the boat sinks, you can probably use it to float.
Honestly, yeah.
If a shark swims by, you can hit it with it. Because of this book, I've made some amazing friends, cast and crew, and it was nice to share the story of something that was very important in my life as a young man.
Well, on behalf of the Daily Jaws and the Jaws fan community, thank you to both you and Lou for putting the book together. Obviously, we want to acknowledge Lou because he did pass away a few years ago. Lou, wherever you are, you've written a fantastic book, and your contribution to the history of the Jaws lore will never be forgotten. I first saw Jaws 2 when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really exciting. I thought it was very different to the original Jaws. I don't think as a kid at that age I really fully appreciated Jaws for what it was, because when I was a kid I watched Jaws for the blood and the guts and the gore and the shark. Obviously that's changed now, but obviously with Jaws 2 you've got a lot more blood, guts, gore, and most importantly shark, which was great. But obviously since starting the Daily Jaws I didn't understand the history behind the production, how there was an original director who was fired, and then they obviously brought in Jeannot to create the version of Jaws 2 as we know it. And I'm sure we'll get to those stories throughout the commentary. But I think as a sequel, it's very different to the original, and I still think it's one of the great sequels. It really is. It's probably quite underrated in a lot of ways. But I'm fascinated to hear what your sort of thoughts are as we watch it together, because this is going to be a first for me. I did a Jaws The Revenge commentary with my cousin, who was a big, massive movie fan, who had never seen Jaws The Revenge before. He thought it was possibly the funniest film he'd ever seen. But this is, but obviously Jaws 2 is a mixture of sort of the thrills and the humor and everything else, and obviously just trying to continue the Jaws legacy as well as it can. So I think Michael and I, we're going to actually switch off our cameras, but we are going to continue sort of talking and watching the movie. Do feel free to comment as well in the video, guys. Sorry, in the comments below if you've got any sort of questions or anything like that. Okay, Michael, are you ready to do this?
All right. My hands in anticipation.
All right, let's do this. So guys, I'm going to give you a 5-second countdown as to when we press play on the movie, and then you can watch it along with us, and I hope you enjoy our commentary. Okay, guys, so we're going to be pressing play On 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So here's the classic Universal sign, and the same sound effects from the original Jaws, I believe.
The kind of underwater bloop bloop sound, yes.
Yeah. So straight away we're under the water, and two very familiar names are popping up: Zanuck and Brown, the producers of the original Jaws, which is great to see. Roy Scheider. Tell us about Roy's involvement in the movie, Michael.
Roy did not want to do Jaws 2. Roy was the only actor of the big three, of him, Robert, and Richard, that was signed to a three-picture contract after Jaws. The idea being, and if you read the Jaws 2 book, you find an interview I did with Roy back in 1981, where he said that, you know, they do that in the case that if the film is successful, and they want to make a sequel, they already have you under contract at a set price. If you become a big movie star and they want you to make another film, they already have you under a set price. They offered it to Roy. Roy did not want to do it. He was, like I said, to fill his three-picture contract. He did a film called Sorcerer, which was a co-production with Universal and Paramount. And then he was going to do The Deer Hunter. He was going to play the part that Robert De Niro initially played. Unfortunately, in pre-production, they kind of changed the story in the script. Originally, it was Roy's character that stayed behind in Vietnam. And they switched it to Nick, to Christopher Walken. Roy didn't agree with that, and he quit. So he found himself still owing Universal 2 movies, and Universal really wanted Roy to come back. So they told him if he did Jaws 2, they would count that as 2 films, and that would get him out of his
contract. That's how he got involved. And here we are, straight away back among the orca now. I had a chat with Joe Alves about this sequence, and he said that this wasn't actually based on the original boats. This is why it looks quite different, particularly things like the hull and the signage and things like that. And this was filmed in Catalina Bay. And here we go. There's the shark, the first sign. Now, I remember watching this as a kid, and I was just like, wow, this is so violent, this initial scene. I know. Yeah, and it's beautiful, nice, clear water as well, where obviously the first attack that we saw with Chrissy was obviously at night. So it was the first time we sort of see a proper attack sort of underwater, which was pretty cool. And there are rumors that model orca is still somewhere in Catalina Bay. So looking forward to someone discovering that.
Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard, the home of Jaws. Now, I'm not sure, but I don't think I like the blue Jeeps. I think I prefer the sandy Jeeps from the original.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just did, Nate Jones and I just did our last Let's Talk Jaws live show. That was actually the actual color. That's the way you bought that Blazer. That Blazer came in that two-tone with the tan and the white and the roll bar.
Yeah. Yeah, I still think I prefer the sandy color. I quite like that. But, you know, it is what it is. I love how we're sort of back straight on the island and we're seeing those recognizable things from Jaws already. You know, the ferry, the Jeep. Obviously, Brody's out of uniform, so this is some kind of social event or off-duty event that he's heading towards. And also 2 fantastic names to see there within the Jaws lore, Carl Gottlieb and Howard Sackler. You know, both of those guys were heavily involved in the writing of the first and then produced. It's like, you know, all the key players are back, or most of them anyway.
So in the magic of Hollywood, they went quickly from Martha's Vineyard, and soon they will be in Florida. You
Tell us
can tell.
about that.
Yeah,
Tell us
right
about
here, you
that
can tell
change.
the sand is different. The seagrass is different,
Hmm.
but you don't pay attention to that when you're watching the movie. But yeah, this is the magic of Hollywood.
Yeah.
This is the old Holiday Inn on Navarre Beach,
Hmm.
which was destroyed many years ago in a hurricane. Not only did they film here, but this is where the cast and crew stayed during
Ah,
the filming of the movie.
and how were they? How long were they in Florida for?
From June through, I want to say right before Christmas, because I want to say Roy called me on December 23rd.
Hmm.
And spoiler alert, he says, I just killed the shark. I'm like, oh, thanks. Thank you. Spoiler alert, which wasn't a thing, wasn't a thing in 1977. But yeah, so they were there for almost 6 months.
Wow. I think one thing that I'd love to point out to any listeners at the moment is watch the color of Roy's skin change throughout the movie, because apparently he was a big fan of the sun, particularly during this particular production, and he refused to stay out of the sun, and they had to color correct him in post production. So you may see his tan just get even more tannified as
Roy,
the movie goes on.
Roy loved the sun. As a youngster, Roy was sickly. He had rheumatic fever. He couldn't
Mm,
go out and play with his friends.
mm,
So when he was finally able to go out and he swam and he was very physically fit, he
mm,
to him being thin and being tan meant you were healthy.
right.
So he was always, you've seen pictures of him on the set holding the reflectors, the like aluminum reflectors, and getting the
Hmm.
sun. But yeah, they would often have to. David Brown actually asked him a couple times to stay out of the sun because it was just getting harder and harder to color correct him and make
Mm,
everybody else in the film look human.
yeah. The role of Sean Brody in this is played by Mark Gilpin, but originally Ricky Schroeder was cast in the role when the original director John D. Hancock was sort of helming the movie. But there was that casting change, as there were a lot of changes during the new envisioned version of Jaws 2. I
Yes,
do
there
love
are a
that
couple.
jacket. I do love that
Oh, I
jacket
love
as
that
well.
jacket.
This man is just, where does he get his jackets from?
I
Honestly,
don't
Mayor
know,
Vaughn.
but I would love to. I would love to find that store.
Forget Vaughn's real estate, Vaughn's jackets and menswear. That's the store we all want to go to, right?
There are a few shots of Rick Schroeder from Jaws 2 in the Jaws 2 book.
Hmm.
Um, he was actually replaced last minute
Mm,
after Jeannot met Mark Gilpin, and part of the of his contract was that he would. Ricky Schroeder did a lot of Kodak commercials, and he had this beautiful blonde hair.
mm,
And part of the agreement was that once he left Jaws 2, because they dyed his hair brown to be more in tune with Roy Scheider's hair, that they had to
mm.
dye it back. And they did such a horrible job. When he left, he had green hair.
Something similar happened though on the set of Jaws: The Revenge, didn't it? When they were in the tank filming like the last few scenes there with Lorraine Gary, Michael Caine, they had to dye the water in the tank blue so it looked like the Bahamas, and apparently it turned their hair blue.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a running thing in the Jaws production thing. What's the goal? We'll dye colors, dye people's hair different colors. uh,
For years after this film came out, until the Holiday Inn was destroyed,
mm,
uh, my friend Joel Salisbury used to, every Labor Day, he would have a Jaws 2 party, and he would show Jaws 2 here there in the Holodome. Um, so the hotel lived on for a long time.
mm. Now, obviously, this is Keith Gordon on the right, and he went on to have a very successful career, both as an actor and as a director as well. Have you
Yes,
ever met Keith? Have you ever spoken to him at all?
yes. I met him who probably 2008 8. He was in Kansas City promoting one of his films.
Mm.
And then to the left there, that was Tom Dunlop,
Mm-hmm.
who is the only Amity kid to also appear in Jaws. You'd have to look quickly, but he's on the beach.
Mm. I didn't know that. You'd have to show us which shot that is. I didn't actually know that. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Now, I've noticed something here. I don't know if you spotted it, but Roy Scheider has looked into the camera 3 times during this sequence. He's looked directly at the camera 3 times. I mean, and I know he broke the fourth wall very briefly in the original Jaws when he's on the phone right at the very beginning of the movie for a split second, but there he's done it 3 times. This is how much he didn't want to be in this movie. Now, this for me, I absolutely love this entrance from the shark. I think it's just so moody, and it's really just full of dread.
Now, this is one of 2 shots that John Hancock filmed that remain in Jaws 2. And this shot was actually suggested to him by Steven Spielberg. He talked to Spielberg after he took the job. And any ideas? What do you think? What kind of issues did you have? And Spielberg said that, had the shark worked, he would have had a kind of a similar scene of the shark in the harbor with the ominous dusk.
And the thing I like about that scene as well is it's the first time we hear the Jaws theme. Like, obviously, we didn't hear it at the very beginning of the scuba sort of scene. We heard it a little bit during the attack, but that's the proper ominous use of the Jaws theme, which I think everybody, chills, absolute chills.
Yes. John Williams wrote an amazing score for Jaws.
Honestly, I think it's on par with the Jaws. Like, I mean, it's like everyone had the same problem on this movie, I guess. Like, how do you refresh a story about a fish effectively? And it's a real challenge. And I think everyone stepped up to the plate brilliantly. I think, considering the production challenges they had, I think they got a pretty decent screenplay. Everyone's favorite deputy is back, Hendricks, although he wasn't in the original version of Jaws 2. But Jeannot brought him back, and it's great to see him back. I absolutely love. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jeffrey just as a guy, but as a character, you kind of need that character just to lift the mood and be that little bit of comic relief. I think some of this shot by John Hancock or
No,
not?
this
I know
is
that he did a
all
parasailing.
just the parasailing scene.
Just the parasailing in that.
Was also by John. Jeff was originally going to be in the film, but it was written more as like a flunky. It was there were 2 deputies, another one played by Marshall Efron, and they were kind of like Abbott and Costello. And Jeff did not agree with that characterization, and he quit. And only after Jeannot came on board, and first thing he asked was, "Hey, where's the deputy?" Jeff and Jeannot are lifelong friends since then.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that about the extra deputy, or the extra summer deputy. I'll have to ask Jeffrey about that when I speak to him about Jaws 2, because hopefully we'll be speaking to him soon as well.
Mark Gruner on the right, and our very good friend Gary Springer on the left. Gary has been very supportive of everything that we've done, both of Daily Jaws and of the book, and he's been on our Let's Talk Jaws live show, and he's just a fun guest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking to a few of the Jaws 2 cast for the 45th anniversary. We've got a few really cool interviews. Hoping to do a group one, although I think the group one might be tricky, so it might be individuals. But we'll be speaking to Billy on the left here. We're speaking to Ann Dusenberry, Donna Wilkes. Who else are we speaking to? Gary Springer. A whole host of people just to sort of reminisce about the making of the movie. We're going to have to ask Donna about the Scream.
Are you talking to Gigi?
Yes, we are speaking to Gigi as well. Good. Yes, Gigi's really cool. But yeah, Donna Wilkes, we're going to have to ask her about the Scream, because that's the Scream that burst 1,000 eardrums. Oh wow, yeah.
Gigi was one of my first movie star crushes.
She's very cute, isn't she?
The highlight of this book was I did a book signing in LA that she came to, and I got a big hug.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, you lucky guy. The things as well, I think, because obviously I watched this when I was, let me see, I would probably be about 8 or 9 when I watched this. So the kids were a little bit older, obviously, than I was. I couldn't completely relate. I was probably more relating to Sean being the little kid on these boats with these teenagers and stuff. But I did have teenage friends, and these kids were just okay, normal kids out on boats doing what they would do on Amity Island. In the same way that people in LA would drive cars, these guys use boats. And I just thought it was actually pretty well cast. And little comic moments like that, I think it just sets up the dynamic for the relationships pretty well. I love this scene as well. This is really funny. It's just the life of Brody. Call the FBI. Love it. I love that little mention there. Miss Polly. Polly's still there. I've actually used 908 at work. Like, I've told my friend what it means. I'm like, we've got a 908. Can you help me out? And he's like, yeah, cool. Yeah. The 908. It's got me out of many corporate scrapes.
Oh, Grace Kenny dancing.
Dance. So this is the sequence that John Hancock, the original director to Jaws 2, put together.
Yes.
This is a great sequence, I've got to say. I do like it.
They were out filming, and he just happened to come across this, and he thought that it would be another great moment of tension, especially when he keeps going down in the water. So, yeah.
There was actually recently an attack of a guy who was doing parasailing, and a shark jumped out of the water and tried to grab him. Yeah. We did a video on it. We basically put the two sequences sort of side by side. Yeah, it was incredible. The footage is very, very grainy. You can just about make out. But yeah, so as time goes on, the Jaws movies become more and more accurate. Although I'm not sure if one's actually going to roar like a lion as it did in Jaws of Revenge. But hey, you never know.
One day.
One day. Oh. Yeah, I remember watching this bit as a kid thinking, yeah, this guy's toast.
It's also a little tension because the people dunking this guy, they call him Mike, and a lot of people think that's Mike Brody. It's not, but it kind of enhances the tension. Like, oh my God, you're gonna kill Chief Brody's kid 10 minutes into the movie.
Well, Jaws of Revenge did, didn't they?
Yes. This is Christine Freeman. She was a champion water skier from the state of Missouri.
Oh, nice.
Now a retired nurse in Colorado.
And driving the boat is Jean Coulter, stunt woman.
Stunt woman extraordinaire, one of the greatest stunt people, man or woman, to ever work in the industry.
Wow.
Now that shot was filmed when after Jeannot took over, and they hired Carl Gottlieb to come back and rewrite the script, and they needed something. They needed a big scene, something that was time intensive to work on, while Carl had this. So gave Carl a little time to write down or rework Howard Sackler and Dorothy Striston's script.
And from what I understand from Joe, that he directed quite a lot of this sequence.
Yes, Joe did a lot of he did stuff on Jaws as well, but these both movies prepared him. So when he was able to get in the big chair for Jaws 3D.
Yeah. For those listening who aren't totally aware of who Joe Alves is, he was the production designer on Jaws. So he oversaw the visual look of the movie and also a lot of the special effects, including the shark in the way that it was built. And he had an associate producer credit on Jaws too. So he had a little bit more of a say and an influence on the movie.
And that is why Joe did Jaws too. Stephen wanted him to work on 1941,
Mm.
and he had to choose 1941, and then Zanuck Brown offered him also the associate producer credit,
Hmm.
and thinking that would, it'd be a bigger feather in his cap.
Yeah, I think it was a
He
good
did
shout.
Jaws too.
I mean, Joe's just a super talented guy anyway. I mean, I was speaking to him the other night and he's just so knowledgeable, so talented, and he deserves all the success and everything that he's had. But this part of the movie, I've got to say, I mean, it's a brilliant set piece. It's thrilling, but that is the world's fastest great white shark. I mean, this thing, if it goes any faster, it's going to go back in time. It's going to be like the DeLorean. It's going to hit 88 miles an hour and wake up in 1850 or something. It's just mad. But again, still a great set piece.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, look at that. Boom, done. Beautifully cut together, that little bit there. Echoes of Alex Kintner there. Yeah, very similar.
Similar but different, which I think is a great homage
Hmm.
to the original.
Yeah, the more I look at this, because I watched it a couple of times this week in preparation for the commentary and our conversation, you can see how there's a kind of bit of both going on. You've got the standard sort of or the classic and iconic Jaws shots and formulas and elements, but also trying to do something new with it at the same time. And I just think from a storytelling perspective, I think yeah, it's actually really, really good. And I love this bit that's coming up now because it's the first time we probably see the size of the shark. And I remember watching this for the first time as a kid and I was like, wow, that's amazing. There she is, Jean Coulter. We have an interview with her as well on the site that'll be coming up around the 45th anniversary. It's lovely to get some time with her.
Now, this shot was obtained with the cameraman, John Fleck, sitting on the shark in a saddle, like a cowboy.
Yeah, we've seen some photographs of that online. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, look at that. I mean, just look at the size of that fish. That's insane. But I'm not sure I would do this. I'll be honest, considering you just poured petrol over yourself. Oh, wow.
But it also gives the shark a different look,
Mm,
because producers felt that people might think it's the same shark. They wanted to, even though the first one blew up,
yeah.
uh, they didn't want people to think, "Oh, the same shark came back." No, it's different.
Yeah, I think that's kind of smart though. I think it is smart because it does give the shark obviously a very specific look and character of its own, and another reason to be pissed off. So wanting to eat people. So it's all there. That is so out of character for Jeffrey. Anyone that's met Jeffrey Kramer will know that he is just the sweetest guy. He would never complain about anything. I've been to lunch with him a few times, and he's just lovely. So that's brilliant acting.
Now, this is Susan French. She started acting at a late age.
Mm,
Uh, she's also, Junot used her later as the elderly Elise McKenna in Somewhere in Time.
mhm.
She's the old lady that approaches Christopher Reeve and says, "Come back to me." So,
So she wasn't a Martha's Vineyard local. She was
no.
an actress that was brought in. Okay, got it.
Roy, not his tan there.
Yeah, that's either been color corrected or that was early in the shoot. That does make me laugh. Now, this bit straight away reminded me of when Quint had the shark on his, or he thought he had the shark on his fishing line, and it
Mhm.
starts to click, and all of a sudden, yeah, that's what that moment took me back to. So, a lovely little homages all the way through Jaws too. I mean, even that bit there as well with the boat being towed backwards. You
Being
know,
towed backwards, you're
it's
thinking,
just,
it's the shark.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's very, very cleverly set up.
For having as little time as he did to prepare for this movie, Jeannot made it an amazing film.
Mm,
He didn't have 8 months of pre-production. He basically, I mean, not literally, but basically got hired on a Monday and started on a Tuesday.
yeah,
So yeah, what he was able to put together is an amazing feat of filmmaking.
yeah. And again, in the shadow of a classic as Jaws, you know, that's commercially and critically successful, not an easy thing to do and to come into. But then I guess if the original director has obviously been let go for various reasons, there's a different, maybe there's a little bit less pressure in certain ways. But yeah, either way you look at it, just with the amount of time that Jeannot had, really, really good stuff. And I think maybe a lot of that might be down to Carl, I think, and his writing and just being able to put something together as quickly as he did, because the original story was very, very different. It's going to be much darker, much grittier, and focused on the aftermath of the original attacks in terms of the economic impact on the town and all of these things. So, which is why that shot of the shark coming into the harbor, which John Hancock shot, that was probably a little bit more. That would have given us a flavor of what the John Hancock version of Jaws 2 would probably have looked like, just from a tonal point of view. Lorraine Gary, great to see her back as Ellen.
And the sad thing was, she was a very, very good actress. A lot of stuff she did that wasn't Jaws or Jaws 2, she was very, very excellent in. But stockholders, they questioned you know, questioned her salary. Why is she getting this? Because she
Mm,
was married to Sid Sheinberg, who ran Universal.
mm,
I felt bad because I'm sure there are a lot of roles that maybe people would have loved to have hired her for, but they didn't want to put up with that backlash of, oh, is she got the job because she's so and so's,
yeah.
wife.
Now, when I was speaking to Joe, he said that the lighthouse was fake. He built
Yes.
that especially for the movie. And just want to take an opportunity to point out this is Gary Dubin, who played Eddie, Tina Wilcox's boyfriend, who he sadly passed away back in 2016. But again, he's just one of those really great casting choices.
Gary was a sweet guy. Um,
Yeah.
I was able to talk to him. He was going to come to the book signing in LA, but he was sick. But I
Mm.
talked to him on the phone, and his wife actually came and
Oh,
introduced
really?
herself.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
very, very nice guy. Gone way too
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, he was only 57. It's way too young. Way too young.
This is
Nope.
Colin Wilcox. She
Mm.
was for fans of older films. If you remember To Kill a Mockingbird, she
Mhm.
played Mayla Ewell, the woman that accused Tom Robinson.
Oh,
Uh,
right.
didn't do a lot of films, but
Mm. I thought maybe that these two were going to team up and it was going to be a bit like Jaws, you know, Brody and the scientist and
Mhm.
all that. And also we've got an article coming on the Daily Jaws about whether a great white shark could actually kill an orca, because obviously orcas now have been documented killing great white sharks. But would it be possible for a great white shark to kill an orca? Read our article and find out. That'll be published in a few days, I think.
Ah, look forward to reading it.
Yeah. I love in this scene as well how Brody, you can tell he's automatically fearing the worst in this. He's all, you know, it's like he's because one of the things when we spoke to John Hancock, and the interview to John will be up on the website soon as well. that he really wanted to focus on the post-traumatic stress that Brody might have been going through. I know there are definitely elements of that in this version of Jaws 2, but even just from this moment, you can see that
Well,
Brody is worried.
when I went out to LA to research the film, I had to go to like a secret underground library at UCLA, where in their rare manuscripts area, they have a copy of Howard Sackler's original script.
Oh,
And
wow.
it focused a lot on, it was very dark, but it focused a lot on Brody and his little descent into madness. He would have horrible dreams where he's in a swimming pool and he's being attacked. It was much darker, and it's I frankly, and I've told John Hancock this. I would love to see the film he was going to make.
Yeah, I think so too. I'd love to see the two different versions. Because when I was speaking to John, I think, even though I think this is a great version of Jaws 2, and I think it's a solid sequel. It delivers the big popcorn blockbuster thrills that you'd expect to follow up to the original summer blockbuster to do. I think in terms of the longevity of the franchise, I think Jaws 3 would have been potentially a lot more interesting if John Hancock's version was made, because I think they would have seen, just from a franchise legacy point of view, the story and the character of Brody would have been more solid. And who knows, Roy may have come back for the third. It depends, obviously, but obviously I know he didn't want to do Jaws 2 initially, but if he could see that the franchise was going in a slightly different direction, it might have tempted him back, and even Dreyfus maybe. Who knows? But yeah, it's just one of those missed opportunities. But I mean, the Jaws 2 that we've got, it ain't bad. It's pretty damn good. And I love that there. She's just said sharks don't take things personally. She obviously hasn't seen Jaws: The
So
Revenge.
right,
So yeah, give it a couple of years
so
and
that's
you
a
will
virtual
see a
advertising.
shark taking it personally. And again,
That should have
this
been the tagline for Jaws of Revenge. Sharks don't take things personally until now.
yeah. Well, we posted a meme where it is that like the doctor saying sharks don't take things personally, and then we got the shark from Jaws: The Revenge going, "Hold my beer." uh,
Back on Martha's Vineyard.
yeah.
A lot of this was filmed in November of 77, right before Thanksgiving. They had to go back and they had to add leaves to the trees.
Yes, I heard
All
about that.
stuff that was reshot.
Uh, Murray Hamilton, another just amazing casting choice from Spielberg, and it's great to see him back. I mean, no one else is going to be able to play the mayor, although we'll come to this later. But there's a moment that didn't make the final edit in Jaws 2 that breaks my heart, that involves the mayor, but we'll come to that later.
One of the best character actors ever. He could
Mm.
play everything.
But he wasn't on the production for very long, Murray, was he? Because I believe his wife was sick, so he
Yes,
was. I
his
think they
wife.
scheduled things around him, didn't they?
Yes, his wife Terry was sick, and he actually wanted to leave. He said, I'd rather just go to be with her." And David Brown arranged
Mm.
to film all of his scenes up front, so he could do the film and then go be with his wife.
Yeah. I'm really glad that they were able to do that. Again, it's just great to see Murray Hamilton. I mean, like you say, he's just one of the all-time great actors. But also, there's just no one else that they could get to play the mayor after doing such an amazing job on Jaws, and to try and write in I don't know, a new mayor. I don't think it would have been as impactful, given the history of the original story. So it's good to see Murray back. Tan is looking pretty good there, Roy. Still not convinced about the blue Jeep though.
Yeah, and it's a totally different model, and we discussed this on our Let's Talk Jaws Live. I wonder, because of product placement, I wonder if someone said, "Hey, we'll let you use, we'll give you these to use for free if you use them in your movie," because everybody wanted to be a part of Jaws too.
Yeah, of course they did. Yeah. I wonder if any suntan lotion companies managed to get in on the act.
It's too bad they didn't keep Rick Schroeder, because he was the Coppertone kid. He was doing all
Yeah,
the
that would have worked out
great.
perfectly, wouldn't it?
Sean
Can you
Brody's fighting sharks. He wears Coppertone.
can you, can you imagine the advert? Oh God.
And the biggest difference about the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, especially around Destin, Florida, and Fort Walton Beach, is the sand and the beautiful green water.
Yeah.
It is called the Emerald Coast for a reason.
Now here, they may have broken one of the cardinal rules of Jaws, because in the previous shot where you could see Brody on the beach from the water's sort of perspective, if you like, you heard a little bit of the Jaws theme, just a hint, but you never hear the Jaws theme when the shark isn't there. So, ooh, messing around with us there, John Williams, you naughty boy.
He knows his stuff.
He does. He's a pretty smart cookie, that John Williams. He should think about becoming a composer. Not gonna lie, when I first saw that, I screamed my head off. I was terrified of that. But that was like the Ben Gardner jump, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's what that kind of is. Just obviously just a different version of it. It's like, oh,
You don't
that's
expect it because it's just a little piece of wood. You don't see
yeah.
what's underneath.
God, that's creepy, isn't it? Now I wonder if this would actually work.
I was just thinking the same thing, because I would think the muzzle velocity would melt the wax before
Yeah.
it came out of the gun. But that would be, well, I mean, you couldn't really try it because you had to kill something with it. But maybe you could shoot like a gelatin cube or something, and see if the bullet still has the
Maybe he's thinking.
tip.
Maybe he's thinking sort of what Hooper did, obviously with the spear gun before he got knocked out of his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously try and poison the shark, or he maybe learnt it on the French Connection.
Speaking of the French Connection, the watch that Roy is wearing, which he wore in a majority of his films, was given to him by Sonny Grosso, who was the real life cop that he played in the French Connection.
Really?
Yes. Roy wore that
Wow.
watch in pretty much every film he did after French Connection, except for Blue Thunder, because Blue Thunder, his character had a digital watch,
Yeah.
or a part of the plot.
Wow, that's incredible. I never knew that. Jaws fans, I hope you're enjoying this. It's great to have Michael with us, because obviously, I mean, he, as we say, he literally wrote the book on this movie. So it's great to have him here, just to be able to give us lovely little tidbits like that. If you've got any questions for Michael, drop them in the comments, and we'll try and get back to you on them. Or pick up his book. There'll be a link in the description.
The video game of the future, Pong. I can't tell you how many quarters I spent playing Pong.
Now, this interests me, because she says Matt Hooper as if she doesn't know who he is. That's
Yeah,
my interpretation of the way that she said it. But obviously, she met him at dinner. She saw him
Mhm.
go off on the Orca, and there's no doubt that when Brody and Hooper returned back to shore, that they would have seen each other. So weird
I
line
took
reading
it.
there.
I took it as either that or she was questioning why Matt Hooper would call.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, Matt Hooper just called out of the blue.
I still think these two are two of the underrated movie couples. I got to say, I think they just work really, really well together. It's like she totally understands him. What can you tell us about Mark Gilpin, who played Mike Brody?
Mark Gruner. Mark Gruner was a
Sorry, Mark Gruner. Sorry.
yeah, the Marks. They confuse me too, especially because their last names begin with G. Um,
Yes.
they just Mark was a teenage actor. Grew up. Probably know him best as uh, oh, I can't remember his name now. He used to be on the Partridge Family. He was Danny Partridge's friend.
Hmm.
Um, very good, very good friend still with Christopher Knight from the Brady Bunch, and he this was his last film. He's very outdoorsy.
Mm.
He hikes and he likes to go boating, and he likes to just spend time out in nature.
Mm. I love this part of the score as well. John Williams having quite a lot of fun here, I think.
That is Mike Burke, son of Charles Burke, who worked on Jaws too.
Hmm.
He was also Sean Brody's like double.
Oh,
Uh,
right.
I always call him the Happy Hot Dog Kid.
The Happy Hot Dog Kid. Oh, look at that. What a beautiful transition. This is another great bit of casting as well, isn't it? Len Peterson. When, oh, you kind of hate him, but you also understand his position as well at the same time.
Well, Joe Muscullo made a career out of playing bad guys. He was on a soap opera for years
Mm.
here in the States. There's the Ellen Brody hat. I always try to get my wife to buy Ellen Brody hats when we go shopping.
Does she? Does she buy
No,
them?
she
Nah.
has one that she only wears when we go to the vineyard.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Fritzy Jane Courtney, make a little.
Mrs. Taft. She's back. Love a bit of Taft. I wonder if she's ever found anything funny at all, ever in her life. I wonder.
What a horrible job he's doing painting these things.
That's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is the mayor's jacket. I mean, that's pretty sort of quiet for Larry Vaughn,
Very
isn't it?
tame.
Really, it's the
He
most boring suit he's got.
should have taken that paintbrush and flicked it at him. It's kind of a
Yeah,
Jackson Pollock
yeah,
jacket.
let's liven things up a little bit. That jet ski, by the way, is also in The Spy Who Loved Me. I don't know if you saw that in the background. That was spotted by one of our fans, Matt White.
Oh
Um,
wow!
yeah, yeah. Honestly, it was just one of those split second things. There you go. That's it there in the background, just behind me, everyone. Yeah, that's got to suck, isn't it? Seeing all your friends out there having fun while you're sitting there painting a toilet.
Wave to my son. He just
Yeah,
like
he doesn't care at all, does he? Brilliant.
Now, the little girl here, that is April Gilpin. That is Mark Gilpin's sister.
Ah.
The actress they had, I guess, didn't show up,
Mhm.
and his family was there, and they recruited her.
Nice.
Great story she told me is when they the first time they shot this scene, Janot called action, and as soon as she started to talk, Joe Mascalo yelled, "Shut up!" at her as a joke, but it frightened the hell out of her. Yeah.
I guess if you're not an actor or you've not been around Joe and you don't get his sense of humor, that must be quite worrying. Shut up. Now I like this because again, this is a view of potentially the shark that we've not seen before. So it's, and I believe this inspired a Vice Press poster. I think it was just the shadow of the shark, or maybe it's not the shark. But you can see how close it is, and again, echoes back to what Matt Hooper was saying about shark attacks happening in 3 feet of water, 10 feet from the beach. And that's exactly where those people are.
And especially the clarity of the water. I mean,
Mm,
you couldn't have done this in the Atlantic because the water is just so dark. You wouldn't see it until it bumped into you. But here you can
yeah.
see what's going on.
And I got to say, that's one of my things that I actually really like about Jaws: The Revenge, the fact that it is done in such clear water. So we can really, I mean, obviously, we all know what the shark looks like by the fourth movie. So, they kind of obviously go overboard with showing it, but it's great to see it under the water, particularly the chase sequence with Mike Brody. Obviously, that's the Bahamas. That's not Florida. Oh my word.
The woman there just took her hat off. The large
Hmm.
woman, that is Janet
Yep.
McArdle. She shows up in a couple scenes here on the beach.
Hmm.
Um, she was a great interview, and she gave me because you don't see her, but she was also in the opening scene at the Holodome. She gave me her Amity Holiday Inn cup,
Oh, nice.
which I have proudly on a shelf. And that beach umbrella behind her, she
Hmm.
tried to get me to take that back to Kansas City because she still had it. I had no way to bring it back, but I would
Oh,
have loved to. I would have loved to
oh,
have had it.
what a souvenir. I love it how they've got Brody now doubting himself. God, look at the look in Lorraine Gary's face there.
And I've said it often, as much as Roy didn't want to be there, he turned in an amazing performance.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I mean, dramatically, this is probably the moment out of both movies that you feel most for him, I think, because his hunch is right. He's right, but he's got it wrong this time in such a public way at the worst possible moment. And obviously, the mayor and Len Peterson and obviously and his wife Ellen are all trying to sell Amity as this amazing place, and he does what he thinks right, just trying to save some people. And this is really touching as well. Just his son still loves him, and really that's all that really kind of matters, you know.
And he realizes that right there, that look on his face. He's like,
Mm,
okay, you know what? I may be having a bad day, but
yeah. Again, it echoes back to the table scene back in the
mhm.
original Jaws when they're putting faces at each other.
I think they could have got him a nicer trophy than that.
I'm just wondering what the C stands for. Does it stand for chum?
Her chief, Martin Chief Brody.
Yeah, it could be Chief.
I like the old dial-up phone.
Fogarty's photography, of course, the dive camera. Perfect bit of pacing. Carl Gottlieb, you are a genius.
Phil Fogarty's photography. A lot of alliteration in that film. Reminds me of high school photography class.
I think this was the first time I'd ever seen a photograph developed in this way before, because I was just used to seeing Polaroids or things being, sort of brought back from the pharmacy or wherever it was when I was a
Mhm.
kid. So watching this for the first time was fascinating. And then the great thing about it is we're all trying to figure out what that is, but obviously we can see it because we know what it is.
It's like seaweed to me.
Well, you know what? That the article that we wrote, we think that that is a picture from the original Jaws potentially, with the shark
Yes.
crashing through the cabin, with maybe just some digital enhancements around the bubbles in the sort of the bottom left hand corner. There is an article on the website about that. But again, what a lovely little link. Oh, there's Taft again. Here we go.
Brought back Al Wild there, Harry. Cyprian Dube on the right there is back to us.
He appears briefly in Jaws: The Revenge as well, doesn't he? In one of the funeral scenes. Sean's funeral scene, I think.
That was the big scene in the trailer.
Yeah, it's a really, really great scene as well. Game over.
I always wonder how like Len Peterson got on the selectman board.
Mm, he's just one of those people, isn't he? Now, the scene that I was alluding to before that got cut out regarding the mayor is just after this scene, but it's not actually in the finished movie. The scene is actually what happens in the office when they're all talking about Brody and what to do, and they all take a vote on whether to fire him. And Larry Vaughn is the only one who votes against firing Brody, which for me is such a redemptive moment, such a
Yes,
redemptive moment for the mayor
it
to keep it
humanizes
in.
it.
It really does. It really does because he's looking out for not just his own interests there. I think he's not seeing Martin Brody as the chief of police, but he's seeing him as Martin. A guy with a hunch who has some evidence. He's not let him down in the past. He's got a family. So, it shows that there's just a bit of loyalty there between the two, even though their relationship isn't always the easiest. So it's a shame that scene was cut out. Do you know why that scene was left out? Was there any particular reason?
I don't know if it was just for time or they just wanted to cut it out.
Hmm.
The woman there on the cash register working bar, her name is Ellen Demi. She was the main sailing instructor, and they wanted the kids all wanted her to have a bit part in the film.
Yeah.
All the Amity kids because they really liked her. And this is the Hog's Breath Inn, which is also was destroyed in a hurricane. There is a new location, and the bar that she's tending, that bar survived, and
Mm.
it's in the new uh, establishment, and with a sign that says his bar featured in Jaws 2.
And where was that? Was that on Martha's Vineyard or was that in Florida?
Destin, Destin.
Like,
Yeah, we go anywhere with you at 8 o'clock. I always found Jackie annoying. 8 o'clock, everybody. 8 o'clock. Yeah.
yeah, she was quite annoying. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite movie Easter eggs, regardless of whether it's in a Jules movie or not. And not everybody has spotted this. We actually reposted a photograph of this recently, and the amount of people that hadn't spotted it was incredible. But as you can see, Brody has used one of the yellow barrels that was used in the original Jaws as a plant pot outside his front door. And he takes a moment just to look at it.
Yeah.
Just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant.
I floated in on you.
Yeah. Ah. Looks like they got that couch at the same shop that Larry Vaughn gets his jackets from.
Furniture and menswear.
He plays drunk pretty well, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Man. So that's the other thing as well. Deputy Hendricks is called Jeff in Jaws 2 and
Mm-hmm.
Leonard in the original Jaws. And we asked Jeffrey about this. It's like, so what happened? He goes, I don't know. There's no real explanation.
I think it's just sometimes you're so concentrated in doing your lines that you forget. I mean, at the end of Star Wars, when everybody comes back after they blow up the Death Star, when Mark Hamill sees Carrie Fisher, he runs to her and yells, "Carrie."
Yeah, I was gonna. He actually reminded me of that. I was gonna
And
say, yeah, it's very true. It's
I think
very
it's
true.
Meet the Fockers when Dustin Hoffman is protesting. He's laying in front of the RV, and he says, "You don't know what it was like, Ben," talking to Ben Stiller. So
Oh,
I just think they get in the moment, and they think, okay,
they
I'm talking to
just
Jeff. I'll call him
yeah.
Jeff.
What a nice scene. Again, just Lorraine Gary. It's just such an important casting choice. Forget the whole negativity around whether it was, to do with the fact that she was married to the studio head or whatever. Just a quality actress.
Oh, yes.
So now the second half of the story is starting to kick in. Have you ever visited the location for Jaws 2 in terms of the Florida part of it?
Yes.
What did you make of it?
Yes. It's a beautiful area. You can go to Captain Dave's restaurant, which is where later on you'll see when they're running down the dock. Um, the boat they use to go lobster when they're going lobster hunting, it's called the Aquanaut. It's still in business. You can take cruises on it. It's got a
Mhm.
big sign on the dock, as seen in Jaws 2. Um,
Oh, this is honestly, he's wearing a red t-shirt, like the ensigns in Star Trek when they do an away trip. It's like this kid's going to get chomped or he's going to
never,
cause trouble.
I never
You know.
thought of that.
Well, I think is Eddie wearing a red t-shirt as well? I can't remember.
Oh
People
my
that wear
gosh,
red t-shirts generally don't come back.
I never thought of that.
Oh, Marge. Oh man.
There's the hero.
Honestly, and spoilers, but oh man, Marge has a tragic end. A tragic end. I've actually had that conversation with a friend when we were picking up some girls in a car. It's like, yeah, there's loads of room if you sit on his lap.
Oh, see, it's like a little teenage Peyton place because, like, the other day, you know, Gigi was smooching on Billy Van Zant, and uh, Larry Vaughn was smooching on Jackie.
Well, it's a little bit like American Graffiti in that way, isn't it? A little bit.
Mhm.
It's just instead of cars, it's boats, isn't it? And a shark.
Billy Van Zant still has that hat.
Does he?
Yes.
Maybe you'll wear it for our interview. That's just asking for trouble. I love that he's got the little dinghy. I love it. And that beautiful John Williams score again.
Martha and her sisters, they were also uh, great boaters, and a lot of them, like Tom Dunlop and Martha, them, they already knew how to handle these machines. But
Mm.
by the end of filming, they all could turn it on its side. And
Well, there's a great bit of boatmanship there from Gary Springer just there.
Sparky there,
Mm-hmm.
the diver, that is Ben Anderson. He is the longtime tax collector uh, for one of the counties in Florida. Used
Are
his money to buy his wife an engagement ring.
they still married?
Yes.
Good investment then. There we go. Look, red.
Red.
Red swimsuit. I'm telling you, red. Because we did an article on the Daily Jaws about the meaning of yellow in the original Jaws and how it's just so prominent in key moments. I think red might be the color in Jaws too. But let's see. Yeah, that water's just so clear, isn't it? Couldn't have done this with
It's,
the original.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Again, the thing about Jaws 2, again, when you watch it now, is that even though a lot of people, well, there is a lot more shark in Jaws 2, but the shark is delayed. Like we've only really seen the shark a little bit so far. And we're probably just over an hour in. I'm not actually sure how far in we are. Hang on, let me have a quick look. Can I tell?
Well, Jeannot wanted to show it a little more
Yeah,
because it's a shark.
yeah,
Um, and that's what the audience wanted to see.
yeah. Well,
So
this is an hour and 7 minutes in, and
mhm.
originally Jaws was the original shark was shown at about an hour and 10.
Hour and
We've been
four.
at it was,
Yeah.
yeah, depending which one you see, whether it's the whether you count the estuary or the bigger boat moment.
Mhm.
Wow.
Surprise.
Again, that scared the crap out of me, but I love the fact that they show the burn there as well. Now, this is a really dangerous stunt to do. I don't know if anyone's scuba divers out there, but doing stunts like this is actually very, very, very dangerous because you're coming up so quickly, and you can end up with what's called the bends, which is basically air bubbles in your blood. So kudos to this stuntman for doing that. That's very impressive.
There's Ben. He signs autographs. He signs "Get us in for Christ's sake."
Is
That's
that what
the
he signs as?
yes. But that's the line. That's he was just
Yeah, that's his
basically an
line, isn't it?
extra. But because he
Yeah,
had a line, he made a lot more money.
good man. And that shot there of the shark's sort of point of view as it panned up towards the boats, that's where the cameraman would have been sitting on its back in a
Mhm.
saddle and doing that sort of handheld. I think that was quite innovative as well. I quite like that idea. Smoking in the bathroom. It's a new one. So, Michael, you've just been fired as the chief of police on Amity Island. It's your first day. What do you do?
Go break the law, go speeding or rob a bank or something because or find out where Hendrix is because apparently if he's the chief, there's only two cops on this island. So you could basically go on a crime spree if you're on a nowhere near Hendrix.
Do you know what I think he's going to do? He's going to go sunbathing.
Probably. First thing I do, I guess, is hire my cleaning lady because I can't afford her anymore.
Yeah.
Driving under the influence. I guess he can do anything. He's the chief of police.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, literally, as soon as you turn up, you get fired from your job, and they get arrested for DUI. That's a bad day. Jaws 3 is just Martin Brody sitting in a prison cell. Oh, Tina's wearing red, and
Yeah.
there's red sails. Okay, yeah, red is definitely playing a big part in this. Although Eddie looks like he's shopping in the same places that Chief Brody seems to shop for his tan clothes.
There's a picture in a book that Gary Dubin sent um, 30 years later, whatever it was,
Mm.
wearing that same shirt.
He can still fit into it.
He can still fit
What?
in it. Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm just really jealous of his hair. That is a really
Yeah.
impressive head of
That's
hair.
that's amazing hair.
Yeah, incredible. Oh, cheeky bit of product placement there.
Tina's Joy. That boat, as of a couple years ago, was still on the back lot at Universal, just dumped in a corner.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what happened to it?
They just took everything back to the studio and dumped it.
Now that dorsal fin is huge. Look at the size of that. That is massive. You see that coming towards you, it doesn't care. You could be on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
You're going to need a bigger boat. Boom.
Well, the real terror here is that Gary Dubin couldn't swim.
Oh,
As
really?
you can tell by the way he's kind of dog paddling and then the way he kind of like flaps his way in there. He's not turning his head. He's just kind of pretending to know how to swim.
Oh, I love the shot that's coming up where you see the shark pass under the boat. This shot here, I think it is the next one, maybe. Yeah, that. Even though there's more shark in it, I think they still use the shark pretty well. They use the water to cover it really, really well. So you get a flavor of the size and the power and all that sort of stuff. Maybe not quite as on par as what Spielberg did, but still doing the same thing, but in a different way.
Now this is Ted Grossman, the estuary victim.
Oh, wait, he
He,
did that stunt.
yes, he
Oh,
did
okay.
this.
Oh man. I do like this idea where, because obviously in the original Jaws, once we'd left Amity Island, we were gone from Amity Island until the shark was killed and Brody and Hooper come back on the beach. Whereas here, because Brody's still on the island, even though he's not chief of police, we're still seeing the clues and the aftermath of what's happening with the attacks and stuff. So you're kind of seeing
Mhm.
how island life would have been affected in the moment, ambulances flying through streets and those kind of things, which is something that I don't know, in the original Jaws, I think what they did was perfect. But here it's just again doing something the same but a little bit different. And I admire the experimentation with the story and just trying to show you different aspects of the same thing.
Mhm. That was Captain Dave's restaurant that they pulled up in front of, and where they used to launch from most mornings.
Hmm.
Still open. Excellent food. Excellent seafood.
If I give your name, do I get a discount?
You could. You go to the Magnolia Grill in Fort Walton Beach, you will.
All right, guys, if you want a discount at Captain Dave's Food, just drop the name Michael A. Smith,
That's right.
and you'll get a discount.
They also have a book of photos from the making of Jaws 2 that you can look at.
Mm,
Some of them they shared, and some of them are actually in the book.
mm. I love this bit from Jeffrey Kramer here.
Now, this was a major sticking point with John Hancock. Richard Zanuck wanted Ellen to go out and help save the kids.
Mm,
I don't know if I'm sorry, Sid Sheinberg wanted it, and John Hancock told Richard Zanuck that, and Richard Zanuck said, "Over my dead body."
mm.
And according to John, uh, they wanted Ellen to go out on the Orca with the guys, and
Really?
yeah, which I think just would have been a horrible move.
Yeah. Well, when I was speaking to John a couple of days ago, because we've got an interview with him, and which will be a part of the 45th anniversary series of interviews we're doing, he did talk about that at length. He talks about the impact that it had, except of course friction between Scheinberg and Zanuck, and he felt like he was basically caught in the middle between the two, and just couldn't perform as a director in the way that he would have wanted to. He couldn't make the film that he wanted to either. So that played a big, excuse me, that played a big part in why he ended up being fired. But again, that'll be I'll let John tell that story in the interview.
A little foreshadowing because Billy Van Zant's wearing red.
I'm going to ask you now about this if because I'm hoping that we can interview him. We're currently in discussions, so yeah, I'm going to ask him about the color red. Maybe he hasn't even noticed it. You know what? Actually, looking at this, you really take it for granted that these guys are really sailing those boats.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's not really something that you even sort of consciously think about.
I certainly wouldn't know how to do it. And I grew up in Florida.
I got to say that that's a quality bit of acting there. It
I
really is
was
good.
thinking the same thing. We must share the same brain. I was going to say
Yeah.
that's there's not a false performance in this film.
No.
Um, even the more dramatic parts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just even, and we'll get to Donna Wilkes and Jackie screaming and stuff,
Mm.
but it's
It.
really a well done film all the way around.
Yeah. And just as that's the last time we see, well, not the last time we see Tina, but the actress that plays Tina and Dusenberry, she's married to Brad Fidel, who
Yes,
wrote the music to Terminator.
from there too. Yep.
Yeah.
Keith Gordon. Keith Gordon probably had the best career as an actor coming out of this film.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, he did obviously, what did he do? He did Christine,
Christine, All That Jazz,
All That
Dress to
Jazz.
Kill,
Yeah. And he went on to have a
Back to
good career
School.
as
Yeah.
he did a good career as a director as well. Directs quite a lot of
Yes.
TV, I think.
Yes.
This is a
Actually,
great shot.
I watched Midnight Clear last night. Actually.
Uh, And that's the image that's on the front of your book, isn't it? Of the shark coming out like that.
Yes.
Cool. Wow. Yeah, he's got his hat on though, which is the main thing. That's good. Managed to keep his hat.
It's funny. Those hats. Apparently, people thought those hats were popular in the mid '70s. I never wore one. Nobody I know ever wore one. But unless they had like a hat sponsor.
Uh, I couldn't possibly comment. Whoa, now that's a good stunt. Watching that boat flip over there. That's impressive. This is what I like when I watch movies like this again. You know, the practical work that's done on these. You know, not just the shark, but coordinating the boats, getting them to do the stunts, and then teaching the actors how to really do these things. You know, it's the classic filmmaking. You know, that I think is sometimes lacking, particularly in some of the bigger movies in the time. And obviously, actors are still very highly skilled, very capable people. But something like this back in 1978, I mean, it's super impressive. And just
Mhm.
this sequence here, I mean, how complicated must this have been to coordinate?
Because they're all practical effects. There's no CGI or
Yeah.
anything else.
Well, I remember I showed Jaws to a friend of mine a few years ago, and we watched it. And she's of a different generation; she's quite a bit younger than me. And we watched it. And she really enjoyed it. And she goes, "So how was it made?" And I started to talk to her a little bit about it. And she went, "But what about the green screen?" And I went, "No, there's no green screen." And she was like, "What?" She couldn't get her head around it. But that's just the era of the filmmaking. Ah, no, this is one of the best and one of the worst moments at the same time. I think you know what I'm going to say. Super tense, beautifully built up. It's like the shark can sense it's a Brody, and it's taken its time to get to him. And I'd love to know how many times it took them to time this right, because the shot when they get it is pretty spectacular. Bar one thing.
Well, you see that wire cable there
Mhm.
next to him. Tom Dunlop told the story that uh, when in this particular
Boom.
shot,
Oh.
when the shark came by, it
Mm.
snapped that cable and
Oh,
it went flying past his head. It could have killed him.
wow.
So
Well, the thing with that shot, as the shark just went past the boat as they pulled Michael into it, when you look closely, you can see the hydraulics in the shark's mouth,
yeah, I know
which
I've seen
is,
people that have like froze it and
yeah, and they've sort of
posted a
saturated the
screenshot.
picture so you can see it, which is it's a bit of a shame because once you see it, it's difficult to unsee it. But I mean, again, just as a set piece, it's still pretty exciting. And John Williams's music is pretty incredible. What do you think about the decision though to take Michael out of the action so early on? Like, because that could have been anybody, couldn't it? What do you
Yeah, but
think?
I think it kind of ramps it up because Brody is relieved that Mike is fine,
Mm,
and then he finds out that Sean's out there. So it's
mm,
kind of that false relief.
mm.
And the other young man in the boat with Tom Dunlop and Mark Gruner, That is John Dukakis. John's dad ran for president in 1988, and I campaigned for him, and he came to Baltimore, and I had the opportunity to meet him. And of all the things he'd ever heard somebody say to them, I think I was the first person to ever shake his hand and say, "Your son was in Jaws too." He said, Yes, he was." Not big supporter, hope you win, but your son was in Jaws too.
That's kind of like vote for Mayor Vaughan. His kids were on that beach too. It's like vote for Dukakis. My kid was in Jaws too.
Should have ran on that campaign. He might have won.
Yeah. I love it. I love the fact that he still has no clue about boats, water, directions, nothing. And he's had a few years to figure this out since Jaws. I love it. I also like the fact that Brody is kept away from the shark as much as possible. I mean, he literally doesn't encounter it until the last few minutes of the film. I think that's quite a smart decision. Could have been worse. They could have played I Spy. Something beginning with W.
This is Captain Jerry Baxter. This is his helicopter.
Yeah.
Before he hired on to do Jaws 2, he was the helicopter pilot on the Calypso. He worked with Jacques Cousteau.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, so I guess this is why he's ideally sort of cast as this role, because obviously it's on the water.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he
amazing.
currently lives on Martha's Vineyard. He moved there about a year ago.
Well, hopefully he's someone that we may see at a Jaws 50 event then. If he hasn't got the beard, though, I will be very disappointed.
He had it last time I saw him.
Did
It's
he?
white. It's white, but he still has it.
Oh, that's even cooler, though, isn't it? That's even cooler. I've got to say, this is one of my favorite set pieces. This is so good. And Joe Alves directed this. So Joe Alves, again, he was the production designer and associate director on this on this Jaws movie, and the production designer on the original Jaws. He directed this, and he said it was a bit of a nightmare. He said it took about 3 days to get the shark to actually do what it was supposed to do. But overall, I mean, you can't be too dissatisfied. I think it comes out really well. And on our YouTube channel and on the website, that we've actually got footage of the deleted version of this scene as well, where you see a bit more of the shark attacking the helicopter.
Now, this is the voice of Howard Hessman from WKRP and head of the class. He was a member of the improv group, The Committee, which also included Carl Gottlieb. And they hired him to be the voice of the helicopter pilot. And it's funny, first show with Jaws 2, when he yells, "Throw me a line," 900 people in the theater. My friend Scott Gilbert yells out, two guys are walking down the street.
That's very clever.
And when you're a kid, you don't think, you just yell stuff out.
Here we go. Oh, and that's another genius bit of thinking, isn't it? With the propellers just completely shafting the sails, because now they're screwed. They're absolutely screwed.
Carl told me that he got this idea when he was working on the film MASH. Helicopter crashed, and usually you see them in the movies, they crash and they explode. It didn't explode, but the rotors just broke off, and everybody had to duck because they flew all over the set.
Yeah.
So that was a Carl Gottlieb moment there.
He's a smart guy, that Carl Gottlieb, isn't he? He really knows how to write a story, doesn't he?
Indeed.
Mm-mm. Oh, Marge. Oh, Marge. Oh, man. Oh, man. That is, for me, that's one of the best kills in this series. Like in all four movies. It's such, and the thing is, you didn't even see that much of Marge. She's not in it that much, but you just really sense how nice and caring and paternal and protective she is of Sean, and ultimately gives her life to save him. Oh, man.
Now
And that
there
shot.
is, and it's only in Ireland, the urban legend that there was a Jaws 2 was shown on television in Ireland. They included a shot of Marge inside the shark's mouth. I don't know why it's only in Ireland, but I have talked to people and argued with people on message boards and said, I saw it when I was on TV. It doesn't exist. It never happened. It was never filmed. But for some reason,
It,
and the odd thing is, it's only in Ireland.
it's the Mandela effect, isn't it? I think
Yes.
people are misremembering stuff. Although I am going to ask you know about it to find out if something like that was ever filmed, because there is test footage of the shark with the water skier, and I think it might be maybe some confusion about that, because I've heard the same thing about in Ireland we saw Marge get eaten. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so, because I think that shot as well when Marge gets eaten, that wasn't the original plan, because the shark just happened to turn its head a certain way, and it looked like it swallowed her and she disappeared. So they just thought, well, that's perfect. Let's just use that, and then obviously play the reaction, the incredible reaction that Donna gives as Jackie. I think it just really sells that moment. It doesn't really need anything more. But hopefully, if we get a chance to speak to Jeannot, he can shed some light on that for us.
Every time I get in an argument with somebody, I saw it. I always want to type, not much drinking in your country, is there? Ben Marley there on the left. David Elliott is Larry Vaughn Jr. Now, according to Gary, originally in the original script, there weren't there's only like 4 or 5 teenagers, but Gary or Andy was the hero of the piece. Andy saved the day. Mark tells a story where he was signed to be on Silver Spoons,
Mm.
the Rick Schroeder TV show, and then when when Mother Schroeder found out that he's the kid who replaced Ricky in Jaws 2, she had him fired.
Oh man. Do you know that would have been interesting just from a story perspective if they'd have kept the scene where Mayor Vaughn votes to keep Brody in terms of not
Mm-hmm.
firing him, and yet his son gets killed by the shark. That would have been an interesting story point. And you don't even have to show Mayor Vaughan's reaction to the news, you know?
Just
But
no, it's your
yeah,
fault.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was just having a quick look. We wrote an article about how the sharks from Jaws are related, and obviously there are 4 different sharks. And the original shark from Jaws is the mate of this shark, and they gave birth to Vengeance, which is the shark in Jaws: The Revenge.
I like it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that was a. I can't remember where we sourced that from. I think it was from it was from a Jaws fandom website.
well, this
Yeah,
shark is
Jaws.fandom. Yeah.
definitely female, and Dorothy Tristan said she intended it to be female. And if you
Mm.
read the novelization, at the end of the novel, um, uh, the shark's pup, I guess you call baby shark, or if you call it a pup or whatever, but it swims away. So he's like, my kid's safe. I'm going home. I think Mike's grounded for at least a week
I
after
would say for the
this.
rest of his life,
Yes.
he's still grounded to this day.
Yes.
He had to escape to SeaWorld for Jaws 3. Jaws 3D, the grounding.
those of you that don't know, Billy Van Zant's brother Stephen is part of the E Street Band.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Billy tells a story. They were going to the set one day, and somebody recognized his name and said, "You got a brother that plays music?" And he said, "Yeah." And he says, "I'm really sorry. I think he was killed in a plane crash."
Hey?
Um, and he had to, there was no cell phones or anything. He had to go back to the hotel and call. That was when Leonard Skinner had their plane crash and Ronnie Van Zant died.
Oh, oh, yeah. Here we go. Maximum Jackie.
That's right. Cindy Grover.
That kid has got incredible eyesight.
I know, like a hawk, especially on the water with the sun reflecting off of it.
And that is not an eco-friendly boat either by the looks of things. Just to point out, Cable Junction, that wasn't actually a real island, was it? That was a fiberglass replica that they anchored, especially for the movie.
Um, uh,
Um,
and one day there was a bad storm and it floated away.
it's still out there somewhere. Just,
they caught it, but they had to they had to track it down.
yeah. Also, as well, there are some shots where the actors are trying to climb up there. They're really struggling because it's just so slippery. Oh, yeah. Martin Brody, he just needs to learn how to use a boat, doesn't he, really? That poor guy. Now, when I was speaking to John Hancock, he said that the death of the shark in Jaws 2, basically being electrocuted, was Dorothy's idea. Now, I don't know whether it was the power cable that specifically electrocuted the shark, or it was some other form of electrocution, but the idea was Dorothy's.
In the original Howard Sackler version, um, the shark is killed by two twin screw propellers. It attacks a boat that Brody goes out on with
Mm.
another gentleman, and they drop the propellers on it and chop it up.
Which way do you think is the best way the shark has been killed in any of the Jaws movies?
I just think for suspense and uh, for everything else, with everything on the line, I want to say the first.
Mm,
Um, it was unique.
yeah. I think for just sheer gruesomeness, I love Jaws 3. The way that ends is great. Just a half-eaten man in a mouth holding a grenade.
Mhm.
It's just you got to be pretty sick to think up something like that. So I'm gonna have to ask Carl some serious questions. Yeah, that traumatized me, that scene, watching Fitzgerald get killed from inside the shark's mouth. It's genius. As a kid, I loved it, but I mean, probably didn't sleep for a week. Yeah, you can see him struggling to get up onto the island here.
Fiberglass.
Yeah. Just that shot there. I mean, you're just thinking, oh, Brody, what are you doing? What are you doing, you maniac? And apparently, although I'm going to ask Donna Wilkes about this, but apparently while they were filming, I think it might have been this part, they actually were getting circled by a hammerhead shark for real. So she was freaking out about that. But again, that's from IMDb. So you don't put a huge amount of credence on that kind of stuff. I always like this shot. I thought that's pretty terrifying, in it, just looking at that coming towards you. Bang.
And when they do it, it looks like Sean like pops into the shark's, drops into the shark's mouth. It's like,
Mm.
oh, the guy, oh, there he is.
And also the shark actually looks pretty good in most of the shots, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Joe said that the shark was basically the same from the original with just a few technical refinements and obviously the cosmetic stuff to make it look burnt and things, but effectively it was the same shark. Um, looks good. It looks good.
A lot of Donna's screaming also came from the fact that it was filmed but never used. Billy Van Zant's character gets eaten, and that is what she is reacting to,
Oh,
watching
I
him
didn't know.
be killed.
Oh, I
There,
see.
there are a couple. I have a couple shots in the book that were taken by
Is it
a
when he's on the
crew member.
surfboard or
He's on the
something? He's
surfboard.
lying down.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen those photos.
So while it's annoying out of context, when you realize what's happening, oh, okay, I'd probably
Mm.
scream like that too.
I'll tell you what, Brody would have been screwed if the shark had swum underneath him and come from behind, wouldn't he? Yeah. Echoes of the previous kill, isn't it? But it's just a electric cable rather than a rifle.
One on one, just him and the shark.
That's it. That's a good shot. That's a great shot. I love that. Say
Yeah,
ah. It's not quite up there with Smile, you son of a bitch, but it's good.
it's clever. It's clever.
Yeah. Wow.
And you notice of all the far shots of all the kids on Cable Junction, you never see Billy Van Zandt because theoretically
Ah,
he
he's
was
gone.
dead. But then
Mm,
they did film an insert which will come up where he's thank you, that they use just
yes.
to show that he's really here.
It's okay, Jackie. You can stop screaming now.
There he
Oh, there
is.
we go. And you know the most ironic thing about Jaws 2? Obviously, in the first one, he was asking for a bigger boat, and he ended up with the smallest boat in the world.
I always wonder where they're going. Where are they paddling off to?
I think they're trying to get back to Cable Junction, up to the island, and just float away.
Is he just done? He's just done with Ellen and going to start a new family with his son and new 19-year-old wife.
Yeah, it turns into the Lord of the Flies. Well, guys, that was Jaws 2 with Michael A. Smith, the author of the incredible book, Jaws 2, The Making of the Hollywood Sequel. Michael, thank you again so much for joining us. It's been a real treat to watch the film with you. It is traditional for me to leave the last word with the guest. So is there anything you'd like to say? Any departing words before we leave Jaws 2?
Thank you. I love doing this. Everybody, thanks for putting up with me if I went on too long or got too long winded. But I love talking movies. I love talking Jaws. And it's funny as I go through reading these credits, uh, I'm amazed at how many of these people are interviewed in the book.
Mm,
Um, I thank them all for being so generous with their time and their stories, and many of them that contributed the photos that are in the book.
mm.
So thank you. Let's do it again. We'll find another movie.
We so
And
will.
my pleasure. Thank you, sir, for having me.
All right, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Michael. We will definitely do this again. So, guys, thank you so much for watching, well, listening. We hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned some stuff. I certainly did. But I've been Ross for for the Daily Jaws, and we will see you again soon. As always, we drink to your legs. Farewell and adieu.